All right, we're live. Hi, and welcome to Gay Out the City. I'm your host, Prince Electro Diamond, and today I am here with OnlyFans content creator and model Taylor Sinn. How you doing today, sexy?
I'm doing great. It is finally hot and humid a little bit in Chicago, so I have zero complaints.
See, my view is I'm existing. I've
I get that.
yeah, because it's just I've known for a while. So I was telling you before that I'm planning on moving to Detroit. I've known for a while. And literally at the beginning of this year, I thought I was going to be gone by now. But I made the stupid mistake of trying to get a job in Detroit while living in Florida. Which, for anyone who wants to try and do that, unless you got a college degree in something, that don't work.
It is. I feel like even to a certain extent with a college
Yeah,
degree, it is
degree
also
doesn't work.
kind of difficult to do that too, but I
Yeah,
hear you.
that's why I convinced my dad. I said, because I'm living at home with my dad, and I'm like, listen,
Mhm.
I need you to sign the lease with me. I don't need anything from you. I just need your signature on the lease
Mhm.
to prove that there's some form of income that can come in, because I have enough money saved to move, I think. If not, I'll probably be begging all my fans for money. And I'm also a musician, so I'm planning on putting out an album this year too, and I figured perfect place to do that. Detroit, Music City.
Oh, word! Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. I know it's a lot of it's one of those, as I describe it's like a passion project. I have written some of the songs, God, 9 years ago, and then some of the
Oh,
songs I wrote
wow.
literally last year. Yeah.
What
This
kind
year
of genre is it?
I describe my sound as electro pop rock and B. So I mean
Okay.
yeah.
So
It's
we
very
won't get any house music this go around,
um
or is there a little bit of house vibes in it?
ooh, house. Hold on, I'm trying to think of the set list or the track list. No,
Oh.
you do. For anyone who loves disco vibes, you get a little bit of that
Okay.
because
Work.
yeah. And then this is
Uh, One of the first things I learned when I moved to Chicago is that
yeah.
Chicago, well, I already knew this, but house music Chicago is the birthplace of house music. So it is very easy to find incredible house music while you are in the city of Chicago.
I did I know? I did not know that. I didn't know that. I think if you can correct me if I'm wrong about this. House has queer coding in it from from its origins, right? Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes.
And I would love this is the thing. Because I've been in such a bad funk, I've written literally the project after it and no house vibes in that. I was very so actually this just I think describes it perfectly. So I decided to make an EP and I'm gonna call it Prison Break. So it's
Okay.
like there's very much industrial vibes because let's put it this way. Taylor's from originally the area where I'm from, and he can tell you right now there ain't shit to do here.
There's not. I remember. I want to say I was in elementary school. Uh, and they were going to open up or try to open up a movie theater in Sebastian. And whenever they did the city count, it was either it was one of the government entities did its meeting, its like public hearing, and it was you would have thought that Disney World was coming and putting a huge theme park right smack dab in the middle of that city with how much pushback they got. And inevitably, we did not get a movie theater, which further enshrined that there was absolutely zero to do in our hometown unless you wanted to go to the beach, which that's where I just was always at.
Well, let me explain. So I'm gonna say this. So Taylor's originally from Vero Beach, which is about 45 minutes north of where I'm at now. And let's just say what I know Vero Beach as. I've been to lots of different kinds of guys, but like I primarily get hit up by black guys. So like Vero Beach, I know as when I run out of people in Port St. Lucie and Fort Pierce, I go to Vero Beach.
And if Vero's not going to do it for you, you can go up to Melbourne.
Yes.
A little bit more of a metropolitan-esque option on the East Coast in the Treasure Coast.
And then if you really run out of stuff, Orlando.
Yes, which is
literally
where we all go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everyone who's like, as I had somebody explain this to me who lived in Orlando for a little bit. They're originally from New York. They're like, Orlando's like the trial city for us to all like try something, and then we decide where we actually want to go. Nobody works up to Orlando. And if you do, set your standards higher.
Yeah, I mean, Orlando. I moved before I moved to Chicago. I lived in Orlando. It's a really great city. It's night and day compared to what I now have in Chicago. So it was a little bit of an adjustment, but yeah, I wanted to set my heights to a little bit more of a larger city than Orlando and just get out of Florida because I don't need to explain that to you what's happening in Florida.
Exactly. So, okay, just to like figure out. So when did you move to Chicago?
I moved in November of 2022. So I'm almost hitting, I think I've just passed my year and a half. So in November, the first week, I think it was November 7th I moved. So I'm almost at my 2 years in Chicago.
So, okay. So let's put it this way. For those who don't know about Orlando, there used to be this magical place there where all the gays gathered called the Parliament House. And that is, let me put it this way. I moved out of Orlando in 2019, like right before the pandemic. And then once I heard Parliament House closed during the pandemic, I'm like, right. So there's no reason to move back to Orlando. Like,
yeah, I was, they closed right because I think it was it was around Halloween, right before. So I guess it would have been 2019, the end of 2019. It closed. I was there for the last night. What a magical place! It was incredible. You can't find another place like Parliament House.
Of course not. As fans of this podcast know, that used to be the place where everyone's like, you had to have a hotel room to hook up there. No, you didn't. I hooked up plenty of time in the beach and the field out by the parking lot. Like, well, not plenty of time.
One of the reasons I love Parliament House is that there's literally, compared to most queer places, there was quite literally a space for everyone. You had the bear den, you had a pop floor, you had the drag stage, you even had a place to eat, depending if it was open that night, which 9 times out of 10 it wasn't. But there was literally something to do for. They even had a store if you needed poppers, if you needed lube. It was a one-stop shop. You didn't have to leave the dance floor.
That was the thing. I know we're getting on the questions, but it's like they're trying to reopen it. Well, they're not trying to reopen it where it was, but they're trying to reopen it like close to downtown. But I'm like, but you ain't gonna be able to create them. I heard the area that they're putting it at is supposed to be like near Savoy, and I'm like, you're not gonna be able to create the magic that was, because like I never been to Savoy, but I think I know what area it's in, and like you can't.
Yeah, it's gonna. And I'm also not gonna hold my breath. If it opens, it opens. But the location has moved from there to downtown. Like it's moved 5, probably more places than I know. So I'm just gonna. If it opens, it opens. If not, I'm not gonna lose any sleep over it.
Right, true. And I remember when I heard that, I'm like, I'm like, they're gonna move it to downtown. Downtown has no parking. Like,
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. And it's just you have so much chaos already in downtown with all of the bars that are there. So it's just gonna cause this collide. I prefer it be near Savoy or outside of downtown, but that's just me.
yeah. So anyway, so I know we've already gotten a little glimpse of it. So like, for the viewers who don't know, what was it like as a kid growing up in Vero Beach?
So I come from a very long line of my family that is from Vero Beach. I grew up on a farm. I grew up in 4-H, FFA, showing cows. So very much, which now that I'm in Chicago, people are very surprised whenever they find out that there are farms in Chicago, in Florida, but there are, as you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would say that I had like a pretty standard Southern version of living in the South. I personally grew up listening to country music because that's what my family would always play. Little did my mom know it would be foreshadowing when all I would want to listen to is Dolly Parton, Reba McEntire, and Shania Twain. But here
Yes.
we are. But no, I think that because my family is also involved in politics, I think that that kind of created a little bit more of a atypical upbringing than a lot of my friends growing up, just because I would go from showing a steer at the county fair then to a political fundraiser the next night with my dad. So I obviously there were a lot of portions of me that I couldn't didn't feel empowered to be super authentic about until after I moved
Hmm.
out. But yeah, in hindsight, I'm very fortunate to have a the upbringing that I did.
See, I always point out, and this is the thing. This is where, so I'm from Jensen Beach, as you know. So like, this is where Jensen Beach differs. So like, I, compared to Vero Beach, Jensen Beach is a city, which is really not. But it's like, it was. I had like the duality of things because like I was raised in a Catholic household, so like I had my dad who was super religious on one side, and then I had my mom who was kind of religious, but she was the one who introduced me to Madonna, introduced me to Donna Summer, introduced me to Joan Rivers. So I had those two conflicting things, and also probably much like with your dad, if he's talking about Vero Beach, we're talking about Republicans here.
Yes,
Like,
yes,
ugh. um, that's another reason not to stay in Florida, kids.
yes,
Yeah,
yes. Especially with everything that is happening in Tallahassee, it is a
yes,
very tumultuous time in the state of
yes,
Florida and the state of Texas and a lot of other states, but more
right,
particularly with Governor DeSantis.
right. And it's just, yes, as a kid, I was introduced to all those progressive things, and then yet Fox News constantly ran in my house, at least from what I remember from 5 years old. Like,
Yes.
so, and I remember like growing up, like this is the thing. My mom introduced me to Madonna, and then all of a sudden, I'd watch this stuff and watch. This will show the kids how old I am. Bill O'Reilly, um, and his thing of where he used to say like pinheads and patriots and show like the Pussycat Dolls and then Madonna, and I'm like, what do you know? And then like all this shit. Yeah,
Well, at least
I'm
you were introduced to the
yes,
left-leaning progressive ideas, at least at an earlier age than I was, because it was not
yes,
until that I left my hometown that I fully got a lot more of a uh,
it,
firm understanding of what it was like outside of my little bubble.
well, the thing was, at least for me, it came like when I truly got into progressivism was in college, which was brief. But it's like that's when I started watching stuff and like all of a sudden you would go back and like watch news clips reported of like old Sarah Palin clips, and then it's like you realize how stupid Sarah Palin actually is when she's talking. And I'm like, and I look at, I'm like, wow, this is 2008. How did anybody think she was fit to be president? Or like,
let alone vice president or a
yes,
heartbeat
like
away from the presidency.
that's why, yes. So yeah. Well, okay. So then, what was it like for you coming out?
So I think it's per every other queer story, especially those of us who grew up in very small conservative towns. It's kind of hard to figure out your lane, especially when, at least at a local level, your family tends to be in the spotlight a little bit more. But I didn't really vibe with the same things that my holistically that my family did. Like, I didn't love to fish. I did not love to hunt. Even towards the end, raising cows, even though it helped put me through college with the amount of money that I saved doing it, even then it started to get really exhausting. So I personally latched on to the only thing that I had an interest in to kind of create that caveat with my family, which was politics. So I have a little bit more of an atypical coming out story. For half of my high school career into college, into the first year after I graduated college, I worked for. I was a Republican operative. I managed campaigns. Uh, I worked for the party, the state party at least. I worked in the Florida legislature as my first job out of college. So I had a little bit more of a front row seat in understanding and learning myself what I was taught growing up versus what the actual reality of things are for not only the LGBTQ plus community, but holistically just people as a whole in the state of Florida, especially in Central
Right.
Florida. Um, it was I actually came out in mid 2016 while I was working for the Republican Party of Florida. Um, I I remember very explicitly. I just came out, like, there wasn't a like testing the waters. I just started telling people. I just wanted it to be out there. I didn't want to kind of live that double life that a lot of
Right.
people who have not came out or in the process of coming out often do. And I don't think, in hindsight, yes, it is something that I should have foreseen. But I don't think that I could have mentally, physically, or emotionally prepared myself for what was about to happen. I remember days later, I quit my job because of the harassment, both from elected officials, from volunteers, from party officials. Uh, I worked on like a school board campaign that was for a Democrat because I had a relationship with her. And then Pulse happened, and it really fundamentally changed the way that I looked at the world. Outside of Parliament House, outside of Southern Nights, I would always
Yeah.
go to uh, Pulse nightclub. I was there
Right.
the weekend before it happened, and I'll never forget waking up and hearing all of the hearing all the voicemails, seeing all the text messages. I remember going to downtown Orlando for one of the vigils, and there was a woman who took the stage, and she was the executive director of a nonprofit in Florida called Equality Florida. And from that moment on,
Yes.
that was what I knew what I wanted to do, and that was what I did for the past 6.5 years before I moved to Chicago.
Work. See, that is crazy. I will say to Pulse, this is the one thing. So I lived in Orlando twice. Again, another reason why I'd never move back. You learn on the second time it's not a smart choice. But it's like, so between the first time I lived in the Orlando area and the second time I was planning on moving to Atlanta. So actually, the time that Pulse happened, I had people like texting me like crazy, and I'm like, what was supposed to happen? I was actually supposed to perform in Orlando that day, but I ended up having to cancel because I was in Atlanta trying to chase a scam record label. Unfortunate. But it's like, but at least for me, that was at least a good thing. This is what I will say. I hated the Orlando Strong thing, not for like, obviously, like, yes, the community should come together, but I feel like there were also businesses who were taking advantage of that, like being like, you're Orlando Strong. It's like, I guarantee you, a week ago, you would have kicked out every gay person who walked in this establishment. And we're supposed to be in the community. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's my part on that. So, I also had the atypical, well, I wouldn't say like yours, but I had an atypical coming out. Because, like, so when I came out in 2012. I came out 4 months after my mom died. So I say in some ways I was fortunate. I only had to come out to my dad. And then I have my older sister. My older sister was super accepting. Fast forward to last year, my sister came out herself. So,
Oh,
like,
work.
yeah. So in some ways I wanted to be like, I did welcome her to the family, but I also felt like saying, you're welcome, bitch. Like, I did it for you. So, yes, this is the good part. Now we're taking a turn for the bad. So, to that religious upbringing, I came out to youth minister at the church, and I told him about this performance idea I had that I had practiced with a knife, where I practiced stabbing myself because I'm dramatic, obviously. And he left the room. He came back in about 10 minutes later. He said, okay, you have one of two options. Either you're coming with me or I'm calling the cops. Now, in hindsight, I would have let him call the cops. So I went with him. He took me to a hospital to get a psych eval. They had told me I had passed it. And I remember being on the phone with my dad, being like, yeah, just come back here and get me. Like, I'm all good. And then all of a sudden I had a cop yelling. He's like, get off the phone. I'm thinking, like, what the fuck? I'm over here minding my business. Like, what's going on? And they stuck me in a hospital room for 5 hours. And then 2 o'clock in the morning next day, they told me that I was Baker acted. And I was transported to a behavioral clinic where I had to serve almost the full 72 hours only because I was brought in on a weekend. Because I know, like, even the weekday psychiatrist, he had one session with me and I would have been out. If I had been brought in during the week, I would have been out in a day. And then after I got out, youth minister hadn't done enough damage. So he set me up with a therapist who tried to pray the gay away. Again, Florida.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, I am happy that you are a better person
Yeah.
now because of it. But I think
yeah.
one of the things that really frustrates me today is that a lot of people in our community, whether it's in Florida, whether you're in Illinois, whether really anywhere across the country, is that a lot of people ride off the assumption that conversion therapy discrimination, a lot of these things are in the past,
Right.
especially with a certain subset of our community. They believe that once we got married, we were locked and ready, locked and loaded, we're good to go, we can pack our bags and go home. But in all
Right.
actuality, things have gotten, yes, you can get married, hopefully for now,
Right.
but
Right.
things have gotten significantly worse. And I really wish a larger portion of our community would be doing the work to educate themselves on what it is actually like, uh, even today, to grow up as LGBTQ, even though more people are starting to come out.
Well, this is what I have to say, and I didn't know your background in politics, so you might agree with what I'm saying, but I think it's 100% true. I think under Obama, especially the latter half of his presidency, people were lulled into a false sense of security because at least now you look at it, it's like yes, we all saw, for those of us who paid attention, we all saw the Michelle Bachmans and the Christine O'Donnells and all of that, and they thought they were fringe. I'm like, no, they were thrusting them to the front of the line, sort of preparing, at least in my view, preparing people for when Trump was elected. Like, it was almost, and I will say this, I know this is problematic, whatever. We need to pay attention to the news somewhat a little bit. I kind of started avoiding the news during Trump's presidency because I'm like, I knew shit was bad. I didn't need to wake up every day to like keep hearing shit was bad because I already knew, and I'm one of those people who I'm like, when people are like, but we need to be gay in Florida, I'm like, but do we really? Like, are you really gonna change the minds of people? And I know that's a little bit pessimistic, but I think it's kind of true.
I think that we had so many victories during President Obama.
Right.
I think not only did we have victories, but I think that a lot of us felt a sense of pride, a sense of that things aren't perfect, but though the arc bends slowly, it still bends.
Right.
And I think that you saw that in the 2016 election. You had everything set up perfectly um, for the Democratic Party to continue after President Obama with Hillary Clinton. I think that there were a lot of things that were learned during that election. Hopefully, things are still being learned for this election from 2016.
Right.
But yeah, I think that
um
it's the same ideology that goes back to marriage equality. Is that you can't once you take your foot off the gas pedal, off the accelerator, that is giving the folks who are working to dismantle our rights the time to re-strategize, the time to restructure their game plan so that they can come back after us even harder and possibly more strategic. And that's what you
right.
saw. You saw a lot after marriage equality. You saw a lot of state LGBTQ organizations pack their bags. New York, right after marriage equality, they pretty much packed up their bags, closed up shop, and said, "We're good." Now they're back, obviously, but
Right.
um, I think that that's kind of the same ideology. Is that if you let your guard down, that is where they tend to sneak in and dismantle things.
Right. And there's something to, I would say, ooh. So obviously, as stereotypical as it is, New York and California overall, they don't have a lot to worry about. I mean, one of the things that I always tell people when I tell people I'm moving to Detroit, they're like, Detroit, I'm like, think about it this way. And this is something that a lot of people forget. Michigan's a union state. So job security is a little bit more of a thing. Like in Florida, still to this day, you can pretty much walk into your job at any point. If they want to fire you, they can.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, I mean, I am the person who thought at my current job, I'm like, if I got fired, would it really be that bad? Because I'm like, well, this is my view. I'm planning on moving in like the end of this month, beginning of August anyway. So I'm like, if I got fired, would it really be that bad for me? No. It just give me more time. But
I fortunately you are in the position, but especially during COVID and post COVID,
yeah,
in the state of Florida, it crossed the line to where whether you were a teacher, whether you were a social worker, whether you were a principal, even parents of kids who are in the public school system or the private school system, depending on which private school you went to, there are now still, even still with the recent court victories around these policies that they've passed in Florida, there's
right.
still that fear because you don't have those protections. And to a certain
No,
extent, you have a patchwork of protections that whenever you go to Orange County, you're more protected to the extent that they can protect you, as opposed
right.
to when you go home to Jensen Beach.
Right. And it's like, so in that, it's, yeah, and you saw a lot of people protesting, trying to ban drag queens because they said they want to go to kids. First of all, this is my thing. I am a musician. I have a loud opinion. I have no problem running my mouth. If you pay me enough money, I will shut up. But like, that's going to be a lot. But my thing was when people said, "Oh, they want the kids." I don't. I don't want no kid. I don't want any kids at any show I'm doing because it's like I feel like the amount of times I say "fuck" is not appropriate for children. Like, just overall, and I talk about things that I don't think parents would like, which is rebelling against the establishment. Like, not necessarily something that I think it's a positive message, but
Mm-hmm.
most people want to like structure their kids, which I mean, I get it. I always say when I look at the craziest thing for me, so let's see. I'm gonna try and do math. So when you were in Orlando, so you said you were in Orlando, you moved away in 2022. How old were you in 2022?
I was 29.
Oh, okay. So I'll say this, you look great, first of all, but it's like I will say this to like, so for people, I look younger than I actually am. I'm like, clearly we pointed that out. I just turned 30 at the end of last month. So like in that I
Happy late
really got to
birthday.
thank you. That's why I always say when people are like, aren't you ashamed of your age? I'm like, no, if you can lie about your age. Like that was the thing. I told somebody that I was planning on leaving Florida in my I'd want my 30s out of Florida, and they thought I was 24. So I'm like, I will gladly say 24. I,
I get it. I get it.
yeah,
I definitely get it.
especially because I'd have to say the entertainment industry overall is a very ageist industry. even for queer people, I feel like I want to say it's getting better. I'd love to say it's getting better. We had a point where the industry was getting better and more accepting. I'm hearing stuff now, and everyone with that like Ozempic trend, I feel like things are getting worse. That's just my opinion. There's no more body positivity. It's be like this and you can succeed in Hollywood. No.
Well, and I think
Yeah.
not to throw shade on your previous point,
Right.
but I think that that's a very important example of why it is important for us to be as visible as possible.
Right.
I'm not saying I know walking around in jean shorts, Converse, and a crop top in our hometowns is going to get some weird looks and
Right.
possibly some off the cuff comments. Um, but there are so many, whether you're talking about kids, whether you're talking about teenagers or
Right.
people our age in their 20s and their 30s, all the way up
Right.
to their 80s, who are still struggling with that concept of coming out. Or on
Mhm.
the flip side, which is something that I've kind of grabbed the bull by the horns a little bit more on, is being visible with your industry. I
Right.
mean, I can't. I know that there is a judge in New York City, but there's not too many people on my radar who have gone from a political background and transitioned to porn seamlessly to a certain extent. So I think
Right.
not only are we making sure that people understand that there is space for us, but we're also continuing to make sure that we are uh, in places where decisions are made about us. Because if you are not at the table, then you are on the menu.
Right. And with that, here's what I say to the sex work industry. Well, clearly, if anyone doesn't know this, I've interviewed many sex workers. So I will say this to anyone who's anti-sex worker. You know you want something to jack off to. You know that you're watching the films that people like Taylor and other people are doing are working on. And if you are watching these things, shut the hell up. Because you got no room to stand. Because it's like, oh, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't. First of all, the people always say I wouldn't do that. You're usually the ones that people don't have no interest in looking at doing porn. Like, you're good. Like, not to like, not to body shame or like tell people that they shouldn't be themselves, but let's get real. You're not the ones that people want in porn. But I also flip to the other side where I'm like, I this comes with the pandemic. I dress half naked in drag. Like I wear t-shirt dresses and bodysuits. My view is if you don't like the way my body looks, you don't gotta fucking stare at me. Like I'm not, and I know that's a very like confusing way to be, but it's like, listen, that comes with being a musician. Like I say, if you have a problem with pissing off people, the entertainment industry is not for you. Whether it be
And that I I I I think that similarly to how queer people go through the process of coming out and destigmatizing what society has taught us of what it means to be gay, lesbian, transgender, queer, etc. We also have to continue to battle or bang on the door of ending the stigma on sex work, on body positivity.
right,
I mean, there are a lot of this is what anytime it's not like people are coming to me in droves because I'm relatively new to this, but anytime someone comes to me and asks me for advice about content creation or OnlyFans, and they have concerns that like, oh, my body isn't perfect. I always say like, look, there is the one thing that I have learned about this industry is that though it is a very heavily saturated market, there is a lane for everyone. There is
Right.
someone out there. There are people, groups out there that are going to pick up what you are putting down. You just have to meet people where they are. And that is a lot of the issue sometimes, is that you don't know where a lot of people congregate, but you also never know who else is out there who is also struggling with the same question of
Right.
uh, body positivity or something along those lines. And by you being visible on social media or in Twitter or OnlyFans or just for fans,
Right.
you're also helping to pave the way for someone else or breaking down the barriers, mental barriers for someone else. But I do think, I know I'm rambling, but I do think in the realm of stigma, trauma is a very real thing, even if you don't know that you are suffering, recovering, have trauma present. And a lot of times when people, because I have had people who are close with me, throw some very harsh words my way as they have either one discovered or I have told them what I do. And if they're not going to stand with me, then they don't have to go on this journey with me. I'm not gonna. It will be a sad loss, but it's not my it's not my job to bring every single person along the way with me. They have to do just as much work as all of us have who have or go to therapy to understand what their traumas are and stop inflicting it on everyone else who's just trying to live their life.
Right. And it's like, first of all, therapy is a beautiful thing. I've said for me, I'm not really well, it's not that like I'm anti-therapy, it's just my view is as a creative, as a musician, a lot of times I haven't needed it. It's like, and especially why to this album that I've written that I'm planning on releasing this year, it's so personal because it's like I talk about stuff and why I know I'm so glad that I want to stay independent is because I talk about stuff that you would not be able to talk about on a commercial debut electronic album, which is I talk about my first sexual experience. I was raped, like, and like one time I was sexually assaulted in drag, and like I've been suicidal twice. These are stories that like I put into the music that most people wouldn't dare try to do on a commercial album because it's not brand safe.
Mm-hmm.
And my response is, with that, I'm also like, oh well. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's my story, not yours.
Yep.
And there are tons of people who like have these same stories because we live in a time where it's still stigmatized to be a victim of any sort of, I would say, sexual crime. And not only are you stigmatized, you're also stigmatized as a man, even as a gay man. Because it's like, as I love to point out to people, yes, the Me Too movement happened in 2017. It did not happen for queer people who are male. We were not part of this Me Too equation. It's why, and it's something I say, it's why so many men to this day still think it's cute to stick their finger in a go-go boy's ass. No. No. And that's why in a way like I've stood in solidarity with like the go-go stripping community with all this where people like you have to be part of that community to stand with them. No, you don't.
And it's not monolithic just to gay men. I think in large part the Me Too movement was not overtly consumed and digested by the LGBTQ community, both
Right.
in sex worker spaces, but also
Right.
in corporate spaces and political, in every space that we occupy. Uh, I don't think that that is fully consumed because I have also suffered it in my professional career. We had our annual gala in February, an event that I was one leading, but two I'm staff, so I'm working, and by the end of the night, I had at least 12 counts of sexual harassment, and the organization's response was not what should have happened in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
And I think that to think that we aren't impacted and to think that an already marginalized and traumatized community, and that's just from my identity. I can't speak to the identity of uh, Black and Brown and AAPI and transgender and
Right.
bisexual individuals as well. But
Right.
to think that we aren't impacted by this and it's not going to further our trauma an egregious misstep that we all need to be collectively working to uproot.
Right. Okay, so in that, what made you want to become an OnlyFans content creator?
Uh, so I started my OnlyFans like many other gay people, or queer people, or just people in general during the
Right.
pandemic. I had a though I was fortunate enough to still have my job, I had a lot of free time.
Right.
So I was like, well, I got some free time. It wasn't something necessarily that I thought, oh, this is going to be what I'm going to do. Because I mean, I would say probably by the end of the summer, like though a fair amount of the country was still dealing with COVID. We in Florida did not.
Right.
So I got back to work pretty uh, quickly. And so I just kind of like, I would post here and there, just like individual things, but I didn't really give it too much of a time a day. I only did like one collab while I lived in Orlando.
Yeah.
And then I got to Chicago, I think in the first couple of months, I started to learn a lot about myself. And people just started discovering my Twitter account. And some creators like asked me if I wanted to film, if I wanted to collab and work with them. Uh, and I just really enjoyed it. And I was like, well, I'll just like keep this up. Why not? I have nothing to lose. I'm not hurting anyone. I'm having a great time. I get to make a little bit extra cash. And slowly it just kind of really synced with me. It brought me a lot of joy, not just that kind of joy, no pun intended.
Yes.
But I got to learn how to edit videos. I got to kind of dip into the creative side of myself that I didn't really give a lot of attention to, and I've really enjoyed it. It's been a really exciting journey, and I have no complaints.
No, I mean, first of all, it's beautiful as someone who's thought about it. I mean, as I point out to people, if you haven't thought of this is what I say to people. If you haven't thought about I would say OnlyFans at some point now. Um sex sex work, like escorting or drugs. If those three thoughts have never crossed your mind, your life has been too perfect. And and my thing with OnlyFans, it's like I love the idea, but at the same time, I don't want to have to do the back and forth of you did this on camera. Yes, but I'm a musician. I need you to take me seriously. But you did this. And it's because people are too ignorant to separate one form of art from another form of art. So you have to give them. And I mean, I already have that with this podcast because it's like I have to reintroduce my old fans to me being a musician while at the same time introducing people who know me. And it's like, hey, I do music. And for people who are like, oh, so you're doing music because it's like trendy. My response is no. I've been writing songs since I've been writing songs since I was 14 years old. No, not trendy at all. Like, and first of all, if I wanted to do that, I wouldn't be doing electronic music. I'd be doing hip hop music, which is what every stripper out in LA thinks that they can do. And my response to that is no. I gotta shut up about this. I've said this topic too many times. My thing is, I don't see the correlation. The correlating between the stripping and the music, I don't get it. But also, if that's your thing, get your life. If you have the talent, do it. If not, this is my quote of this. It's like, if honestly you don't have the talent, somebody will always need their dick sucked in the bathroom. Like, get to work.
Well, and I mean, for me personally, the more
Yeah.
the more I continue to go down the path and continue to put more energy and effort and resources into doing it, the more I was like, you know what? I'm gonna kick myself in the ass, not only in 2 months, but in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, if I don't give this a shot. I know that
Right.
this shot is not for everyone because, like you just said, especially if you're in like corporate spaces or really any space that is not entertainment, and even in the entertainment industry, like it'll kind of put a stigma on you if a future employer finds out you might not be able to get your job or keep your job for it. So it is a personal decision that people have to make. I know it's a difficult personal decision for a lot of people, but
Right.
I've spent too much time giving all of myself to everyone else. In hindsight, that is what I have learned from therapy is that I've always given 200% to a candidate, a government, a
Right.
campaign, like, and I've never done that. That was the question. That's the question that my therapist asked me is, who are you? What makes you happy? And I had to do a lot of soul searching for the first 6 months because I've never been asked that question. I've never asked myself that question. And the one thing that I have felt empowered and excited about doing in a very long time is content creation. And if you got the ass for it, might as well give it a shot.
I mean, yes. And
I know
I
my
will.
strengths.
Well, yeah. That's the thing that I always tell people where it's like, I know it. I'm a thick bitch with a fat ass. I am versed, but like, in truth, unless I get a really open minded guy, 9 times out of 10, people ask me to bottom. So I'm like, I'm just used to it. Like, it's
It's
like,
okay, I get it.
yeah. Well, I mean, of course, like, and my thing with that is like, first of all, I don't know if this is a thing, and you may know this in the content world, or maybe it's not a thing in the content world. Is bottom shaming still a thing? Like, I would like to say I hope we are above it. I don't know. Maybe it is still is.
Um, I kind of have three classification. This is just me personally. There's not a
Right.
science to this in any way, shape, or form of
Right.
content creators. You have the first bucket of like people who take this very seriously, who thoroughly enjoy it, who run it is their full-time job. They run it as a business. And they are very proud of the work that they do. I'd say the second bucket is kind of like the people who kind of just do it on the side, just kind
Right.
of like sporadically do it, are not necessarily fully connected with the greater community, but they kind of have their own lane and they have their community in that lane. Then you have the people who are really excited about it. They'll do it, and then they realize how much work it is, and then they always make the reference of like, oh, I should just start an OnlyFans, or just for fans, or I should get paid to have sex. And I would say like the people in the first bucket who it's their full-time job. I've never experienced or seen bottom shaming. Not to say that it's not out there or that it
Right.
doesn't exist, because I think that we are around it so much, or have tried, or people who are prominently tops have tried it, uh, who understand like what preparation goes through. It's not just douching, it is also like your diet, it is the preparation before you start that process. Not to say that
Right.
tops don't have a hard time doing it too, but I would say that like I've seen some like comments and tweets and whatnot of like people who are newer to the community that kind of like will put out a little couple of thoughts that maybe they should have just kept to themselves, or should have reflected a little bit more, that I was like, I'm okay. This is a bless and release moment, because you obviously don't know what we go through in order to get prepared for a dick, whether it is small,
Right.
mediums, large, extra large.
It's-
So I would say that like it doesn't fully happen, but it happens sometimes.
See, small. Eh. Um, my thing is, love people with smaller dicks. I can't take. Well, it's not that I can't take you. It's that I know myself, and I'm very honest with guys. Where I'm like, it's like if I already know you too small, I'm not gonna be like, oh yeah, let's try it. I'm gonna be like, I'm like, you're not gonna fit. Like, I know you love this and you love this fantasy, and like, come on, work at your life. But it's like I'm real with guys. I'm like, listen, I'm like, if you don't got 6 inches, it's not happening. Like, I'm just and for some people, that's I don't know. I feel like honesty is the best way to go instead of being like, we can try to be like, go find somebody else. Like, I don't know.
I
With
wouldn't
that being
necessarily
said,
say I would no, it does. I wouldn't necessarily say I am a size queen by any way, shape, or form.
mhm,
But if you got it and you know how to use it, no matter what your size is, that's all I care about. If you know how to use what you got well, and that you can have a good time and I can have a good time,
right,
that's all that I mean, especially if you're on film, like if you're recording it, you can tell if the bottom's not having a good you can tell if someone is not having a good time and is just trying to work through it. Obviously, some of us are really good actors, in large part, but
right.
yeah, I mean, if you got a big dick and you know how to use it, sign me up. If it's not XXL, you're still fine. Like, still sign me up. I'll ride the ride. We'll see if we vibe well together. Because as long as there's a connection for me, that's all that I prioritize.
Right. And what was I'm gonna say? I'm gonna the next question in a minute. It's like, so with me, it's like when people talk about stuff, it's like, first of all, as a content creator, you obviously know this. As like a normal person, I can say this too. When people are like, oh, it's so bad to sexualize people, we sexualize people all the time. Like, and that's why when people like my greatest struggle was um getting past allowing myself to just be objectified. It's something that I'm pretty sure you have to get through too, because it's like I will admit and like why I worked through the stuff, and it's like after I was raped and like the first time after I was in a relationship and bottom, it's like bottoms, it's like you want to sleep with everybody because you have no worth. Like, that's why I say you go one of two ways. You either you feel like you're a prude and you never sleep with anybody again, or you sleep with the whole world because you don't know who you are. But it's once you find that thing of, I say, at least for me, the things that I feel that every top should do. One is be patient. Bottoms have to get ready. So be patient. You know what's going on. You know what they're doing. And point number 2, if you don't eat a bottom's ass before you fuck them, you don't respect them. That's at least,
or at least ask. Or if it's not, I always say, like, communicate with me. Like, I'll tell you if I want, or if it's been a hot minute since I bottom. Like, I will tell you. I either want you to, or hey, I think it'll probably help if you do eat my ass.
yeah,
But like, if there are some people who just don't want to, and like, I have my own processes for that. Especially if I really want to hook up or sleep with someone, I don't like ding them for it, but I'm like, don't not communicate with me until I'm there, and then I'm like up a creek without a paddle. Like, tell me,
right.
give me the ground game of what you don't want to do. What are your limits? What are your boundaries? So that I can internalize that and know what I need to do also to get ready.
Right. And I mean, I guess it's like a beautiful thing, and like to let people, as I said, the whole thing with, I say those two things because it's like I think it was like 27 years old, because this is the thing. In terms of preparing, because again, with a fat ass, like usually with guys with bigger dicks, not preparing is not an option. Like, you're not going to stick it in and think that that's going to work, and then somehow I'm going to magically love this experience. No, you're going to have to take your time, because not only is my ass big, but my ass is tight. So, like, take your time, get it ready. Don't just jam it in. It's like, yes, we all know when you're ready for sex. You're turned on. Like, you're extremely horned up. I get it. Nonetheless, if you're above, at least for me, if you're above 7.5 inches, prepare me. Just like, I don't know. That's
well, you're not wrong. You know, that is the number one thing that I wish everyone would take away, no matter what, whether you're a side, verse, top, etc.
Right.
Like, everyone's body's different. Like, just because it takes one bottom 10 minutes to get ready does not mean that it's going to take every bottom 10 minutes to get ready. Now,
right.
Biologically, just because I go in rabbit holes sometimes and do a little bit of research, like, if your diet is the correct way, like if you're having a normal or a decent intake of fiber, like, it shouldn't take you hours to get ready. But like, you also don't know if this person just has some, like, different scenarios, different bodies, different stomachs, different abilities. It is all going to be different. It is not as gay and narrow as everyone assumes it is.
Right. And it's also, I saw somebody say at one point that they talked about, and this wasn't a porn star or like an OnlyFans content creator, it was an average person. It's like, when they said it should take 4 hours for you to get ready, I'm like, in that, I'm like, at least for me, I'm like, who the fuck has 4 hours before they're supposed to take a dick to get
No,
like,
I don't. I don't. I'm not that patient of a person. If it's not happening, all right. I'm about to eat, get high, and I'm gonna go to bed.
Yeah.
Or continue going on with my day and just know the universe does not have this in my cards. Or I'm just like, well, maybe I'll just pop instead. Or maybe I'll just do something else. It does not always have to be bottoming. But yeah, if it's taking that long, I I'm a patient person sometimes, but not that patient.
Yes. Work. Okay, so what's the freakiest thing that you've either been asked to do or that you've done?
Ooh. I would say that I have done. There's a content creator who I love so much. I love his name is Persian Prince. He lives here in Chicago. Uh, he is one of the sweetest humans. I can't speak highly enough of him, but he also like has a very specific lane that brings him joy, and it is bondage. Uh,
Yeah.
and I want to say it was either right before market days or right after market days last year. He was like, I was like, I've never. We connected somehow. I think it was on Twitter, and we had been talking for a minute.
Right.
He was like, I'd really like to like give it a shot on you, see if you like it. And I was like, sure, I'll try it once. If I don't
Right.
like it, then I feel like I have enough of a connection with him to where I feel safe in his hands, so to speak. So yeah, he like we recorded it, both like the actual process because it was like a full body bondage moment. And it was great. I loved it. I had a great time. He did like a little bit of edging. Obviously he fucked me, but it was a really
Right.
different side of things that like I'd never tried before. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? That I have been asked. I try not to go sometimes. I mean, a lot of times I just forget, but I sometimes purposely do not wander myself into my DM requests because it can be a little bit of a rabbit hole, as you could imagine.
Right.
I would say the thing that I had to read twice was someone asked if I would fart into a Ziploc bag and send it to them with the date on the Ziploc bag, and they would pay me. And I was like, I'm sure that there are people out there that would love to do this for you. That is not my specific thing that I
Right.
love to do. So I was just like, this isn't for me, but I'm not going to ding you because you asked me.
Right. And I will say this with this, I have three. I usually have two. I actually had a new one not that long ago. So, like, I had someone ask me to fuck their foot. And I'm like, at first I thought I was like, I thought about taking because they were gonna pay me, but I'm like, I thought about taking the money, and then I'm like, and then they just got too aggressive because like midway through I changed my mind, and like when I stopped replying, they're like, how much? How much? How much? And then like basically said, I think they said like fuck you, you fat bitch at the end, and I'm like, and I'm thinking I'm like, I'm not allowed to change my mind. Like, because to me it's there's certain things that are weird. That one, um, fisting, I just tell guys like, no, you're not shoving your fist up my ass. I'm sorry. Like, no, that sounds well, because to me, first of all, it sounds painful. It sounds painful, and I'm like, that to me in no way sounds like a pleasurable time. Where it's like, and then the other one, the last one is actually involved with farting. So like, I had a guy who's like, I want you to sit on my face, and while you're sitting on my face, I want you to fart so I can eat your farts. And I'm like, this is what I honestly told him. We haven't met up, but I'm like, I'll try it. Because at least you bought them. You know exactly what I'm talking. You're gonna know exactly what I'm talking about. If I'm farting before we're having sex, that to me means the next step we're about to take, I'm not ready for. Like, and that's why I'm like, so you want me to do this, and then the next thing you're gonna do is stick your dick inside me?
And some people do not have an issue with that. And I know that there is a specific community who is very into that.
Yeah.
But that's just not my. And I'm usually like, I always, anytime, unless you are coming at me with heat and aggression, I usually always try to lead with kindness. So if I usually get those messages, if I see them, that's the other
Yeah.
part of it, is sometimes I just don't see messages or catch them.
Right.
It's just like, hey, happy you thought highly of me enough to reach out, and that I'm uh your pick for it, but it's just not my thing. Not any shade against what you're into, but it's just not gonna be the thing that I want to do or want to try. So
Right.
thanks, but not for me.
Yeah. I mean, yes. First of all, with that, it's like my thing is, first of all, if you're trying to hit up, I mean, granted, Taylor's a little bit smaller, but like if you're hitting people up with hundreds of thousands of followers, millions, I can tell you, baby, they ain't looking at it. I can't get them to respond to me to come on here. They're definitely not looking at your fantasy you want to go with them.
Well, and that was the one of the best pieces of advice that I was given when I started the one. I can't remember who gave it to me, or when they gave it to me, but it's just like, whenever you hit a certain level of content creator, whether you are routine, whether you're exclusive with a studio and also doing content creation, but like whenever you
Yeah.
hit a certain amount of followers, you're not gonna have the bandwidth to always check your
Right.
requested messages. I mean, sometimes you might catch it and you might have a moment and you might have time to do it, but like, I try to, anytime I'm reaching out, like I'm about to do a whole month-long travel for July, and there were like, I have a list of people that I'd really want to work with in the places that I wanted to visit, but I don't hold it against them if they don't respond. I just either know, one, I'm not owed a response. Two, I might not be like, they might not find me attractive, or I might not be their cup of tea, or two, they just might be busy because life happens and they might not see it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I like. There, I have a friend who is just wanting to start, and he was like, "Oh, well, I've tried to message X, Y, and Z, and like, he must not like me because he hasn't responded." And I'm like, it's probably like, he has over 200,000 followers. Like, he probably just hasn't seen it, or just hasn't had the bandwidth, or maybe he's not filming. Like, you don't know what he has going
Right.
on. Like, just give it time, continue to be focused, and if it's meant to be, it'll happen. If not, then there's
Mm-hmm.
millions of other content creators out there.
I am true. And I will say this, depending on the content creator, you will have people who give you the runaround over and over and over again. And eventually they'll end up doing what you want them to do. And a lot of times they're testing you. I would say one example to that is somebody who I'm friends with, somebody who I love. His name is Ricky Roman. Like, and he had me going for 6 months. And like, then all of a sudden one day he gave me, he's like, here's my phone number, text me. I'm like, and then I think it was like a few weeks later, he was on here. So like, you got to be persistent with people, and sometimes people's egos get in the way of.
Agreed.
The craziest, what was the craziest? I'm getting to the next question. The craziest one I was asked, somebody asked me for $1,000. And I'm like, I'm good. Like, it's like, you were hot like 9-10 years ago. You're, especially 9-10 years ago, you're old. Like, unfortunately, not to say this because I know Taylor's in his 30s, but like in general, in your 30s, you're considered washed up and tired in the porn world, which I think is stupid because I look at 30-year-old, sometimes 40-year-old guys. And this was even me in my early 20s. I'm like, fuck, he's hot. Like, forget the fact that he's whatever age. Hot guy's hot guy. Like, age is just a number. Well, no, I'll say this. Age is just a number when you're legal, people. Like,
very much that part. Yeah,
yes.
but I do think, I mean, yes, the general consensus is like when you hit your 30s, milk it for all it's worth because you're starting to hit the retirement age in adult content creation or porn. But I will say, like, is the industry perfect? No. Are they the ones carrying the flag running into inclusivity? No.
Of course
But
not.
I would say like there are a plethora of content creators who are very successful, still in their prime, doing studio work, winning awards, continuing to travel and make content, who are 38, 39, 45.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it really just depends on, like, again, because it's not, this is what I always tell at least people who are finding out that I do what I do or have questions, is like, this is a business. This is like, I fully run myself as, and what this is as a business, because it is like, it's a full-time business that has a lot of running parts, and you still have to market yourself. You have to, like, if you have your brand, you have your lane, then you have to continue to do that and figure out ways to continue to put yourself at that top of the search, so that it doesn't have to be crazy things that you're filming, but like, if you
Yeah.
continue to do the same exact thing every single time, people are not going to get anything new. So you have to, like, spice it up, not reinvent yourself, but like continue to develop yourself that is layered with things that want to keep people coming back to see you. Because if you continue to have the following, then studios,
Yeah.
if studio work is what you want to do, then studios will want you to help amplify that.
Right.
But
Right.
yes, you aren't wrong.
Yes. So, what's been your favorite modeling shoot?
Uh, in regards to, like, collaborations or photographs?
I'm okay. So I've figured I'll do this with photographs. Yeah.
Uh, so one of the things that I have truly loved, because I consider myself for the most part a extrovert with some introverted qualities, are the people that I've met along the way. I've met some really fascinating, really, like, genuine, great people. And I do feel like it's a pretty good sense of community. But I've also met some people that I have become very, very close to. I would say for me in particular, one of the people who every time I film, do a photo shoot with him, and make magic with him, and while he's behind the camera, I've always had a good time. That's Jay Steele. He's incredible. He is a very genuine, authentic person.
Yes.
And I've loved working with him every step of the way. I think it was last Sunday, I did like a short thing called Sinful Sundays where it was like
Yeah.
showcasing one of the seven deadly sins. And that was something that it was a very long photo shoot, but it was something that Josh and I worked together on. So yeah, I would say like, if I had to pick a favorite, and it's mainly he is the favorite because I am also the closest with him, um, is probably Jay.
Yeah, that's actually my next question. I will say with that to Jay, I do love him. I've interviewed him on here. Hopefully, I am still putting this out, Jay. Hopefully, you can squeeze in some time because I talked to you about this before. I would love for you to shoot my album cover. Like, it's something, and I will say this, I'm going to do this as a shameless plug for myself. If you are watching this, I'm currently in a competition for Rolling Stone for artists who are um for musicians who are they're trying to find like the next new big artist, and one of the things that the winner gets is a chance to be in Rolling Stone. So
Oh, work.
with that, yes, with that, if they let me choose my photographer and I win, I am the underdog of this race from what I know. Like, I see some people that I'm friends with who are like, there's somebody that I'm friends with who's in second place and I'm in fifth. So like, I'm the underdog, but it's like, if I do end up winning this, Jay, you will be hearing from me because I wouldn't want to, especially from the way I hear how he does things, I wouldn't want to work with anybody else because it's like, especially someone, I can come in with a vision. Like, I have tons of visions, and I know Jay loves that. Everyone, everyone that I've known who's worked with Jay has said positive things about him. Whether it's you, whether it's Dalton Riley, whether it's Jaden Jax, like these are all like, and he does amazing fucking work. Like, literally just props to you, Jay. I know
Yeah,
you
no,
probably
I can't speak highly enough of him. But I mean,
yeah,
I've never had a bad experience, knock on wood, with a photographer. I get this weekend, tomorrow I fly out to Fort Worth to work with Mark Henderson. So I'm really excited about that.
right.
There's a couple of Ross, who is here in Chicago, who is incredible. Uh, Absolutely loved working with him. Like, every photographer that I've worked with, I've always walked away with. I've always left with some, not just obviously images, but I've also left
Right.
learning something, and I'm always grateful for that.
Yes, I am. I will say this: I've never done a professional photo shoot. Like, I've done amateurish photo shoots, never done one professionally. But I'd be down because, like, especially Jay. Jay's not the kind of person who's gonna like try and change who I am, which, at least from what I've heard, because it's like at the end of the day, if somebody's telling you, "Oh, change that, change that, change that," then you shouldn't be working with them anyway, because clearly they want somebody who's not you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and yeah, no, you're perfectly spot on. as I have done this more, I have realized that, like, especially when they turn out to be paid gigs, I always like, I want to know what is your vision, why, like, what specific reasons did you like? I want to learn a little bit more about, like, what are you wanting to capture? What is
Right.
either the clothing that we're doing that you're wanting to showcase, or what is like pay gigs are a little bit different, but if I am doing it one on one with intention behind it, I agree. They shouldn't try to change who I am or what I do just to fit a certain mold that they want.
Exactly. So, what's your dating life been like?
Uh Not much. Like,
Right.
I am I opposed to it? No. Am I on the hunt for it? Also no. Like, it's just it's a lot of work doing, like, the transition from a 9 to 5 job to content creation and OnlyFans
Right.
and whatnot. Like, I don't fully have, like, a full the full ability to give my attention and myself to someone. I also don't know if you will find me in Chicago in a year or 2 years, so am I opposed to it? No, uh, but I also just know that I'm not, like, I'm focusing and looking inward, not necessarily trying to, like, carve out a lane with someone right now because I can that's a lot.
Well, well, because this is the thing, and I say this to the entertainment industry. I can understand why. If you're dating somebody outside of the entertainment industry, they got to understand that, like, your type, especially as a performer, you're type A, meaning, like, at least for in my view, it's like you're not like laid back and chill. You're very much that if I'm doing this, this, and this thing, you cannot be mad at this. Like, as I say, mine are if I'm kissing a backup dancer, that's not me cheating on you. If I'm like flirting with a guest on here, that's part of my shtick, not cheating on you. And in that, my thing is, especially with me moving to Detroit, it's like even my friends with benefits here, he's like kind of he wants to commit, but he also is like so iffy about it. And I'm like, I keep looking at him. I'm like, baby, you got to make up your mind because like when I'm gone, if you don't think that me being in one of the most African American heavy African like black American cities in the country that's not going to be a problem for you, it is because I'm gonna find somebody to date. Trust.
I mean, every time that
Yeah.
I've gone when I have gone on dates, they are like, it's not this isn't what I do is not something that I am shameful of or hide. Like, I probably do give a little too much. Like, I'm always like, if you have questions, just ask me. I'd rather you ask than, like, hold on to thoughts that probably are not true, and they're all based on assumptions. Like, if you ever have
Right.
questions, if you ever wanna know something, if you ever wanna see behind the paywall, I'm happy to show you. Obviously,
Right.
I'm not doing this after the first date. But yeah, like, if they have questions, I'd prefer that they, uh, ask instead of not, but
Right.
if you're having an issue with it now and you don't think that you are going to get over it, then, like, it's not gonna work because 'cause I'm not gonna change who I am or what I do just because it makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. As I don't think anybody should like, especially you know who you're getting into. Like, if somebody says, "I'm on OnlyFans, I'm in porn, I work as a sex worker, I'm a or work as a like escort, I work as a go-go dancer slash stripper," like I'm in the you know what you're getting into when you sign up. And if you don't know what you're getting into when you sign up, trying to start a relationship with this person, I would say it's very simple. When you're around people who are dating people in this, or when you're around the partners of people who are dating, ask them questions. If you don't feel comfortable enough to ask your partner questions, ask them questions. They'll answer you. I would love to say they'll answer you honestly. Maybe if they hate you, they'll lie. Like, but then they should probably answer honestly. And I will say this just for one of my own experiences. In the year 2024, racism is not cute. Like, also I tell people, baby, date outside your race. Like, I'm not saying it's for everybody. I'm saying just try it. Yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, I will be honest, it is easier to go on a date with someone who is also a content creator and does porn, because
Right.
there is a common, like, we both understand what each other are going through. We both understand what we're signing up for. It is easier to make a connection. We will oftentimes be in similar spaces. Uh, do I have crushes on some of my scene partners? Absolutely. Do they know this? Also, absolutely. But like, I know that I just have too much on my plate to enter into that.
Right.
Maybe like next year, sure. Maybe in a couple months. I don't know what tomorrow is gonna. I mean, tomorrow will hold a
Right.
flight, but yeah, it's just I'm barely. I'm just trying to sleep when I can sleep, so we'll just go with that.
Yeah. I mean, like, also, I say with this, I mean, first of all, I get the having crushes thing. I have crushes on people, on guests I've had on here. I literally admitted to one of the guests where I'm like, if I were to date any guest that I've interviewed, it would be you. And then I explained why. Because I'm like, my thing is, at least for me, it's so hot when somebody's being like so emotionally vulnerable with you. It's just, that's why all the idiots who say all gay people want is abs. No,
No,
no. Like,
no,
not for somebody they're dating. Like, come on. I mean,
it's not a prerequisite.
no. I mean, it's a prerequisite for some people. It's called they're in their
Yeah.
young 18s and 20s. Like, those of us who are mature are looking for a little bit more. I mean, granted, do you want to be attracted to the person you're dating? Of course, like that's obvious. But it's not like, as I say, everybody will find you attractive. I would say this, and this is a very sort of like sarcastic mean way to put it, but it's like if you look like you've been hit by a truck, you're probably gonna have a harder time out there, but it's not like nobody would date you. And
But also, like, not to. Sorry, keep going. I mean to interrupt
no,
you.
no, 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 go ahead, go ahead, go.
Like, I know people have strong opinions about RuPaul, but if you're not gonna love yourself, if you don't find yourself attractive, if you're not going to walk into a room, if you're not gonna do the work to love yourself, like that's 50% of what it is for me. Like, yeah, I do need to find you attractive, but also like you also need to like be confident. Like it's not a prerequisite to have abs. And I mean, my Achilles heel is a very nice chest. That's just
Right,
me. Uh, I am putty in your hands if you have the best chest. But like you also have to do the work to know that you are sexy the way that you are. Like someone, what was it? 2 weeks ago, 2 weekends ago, we had Chicago Pride Fest, and someone like had the full ass confidence, walked up to me, got my number, we texted, we got a drink, like it was a great time. And like that's really all it takes. Like you just walk up to the person because both times in your head, in each other's heads, you're like, oh, I wish that person would make the move. I wish that person would make the move. Walk up, say hi. This is both for me and for other people. Like
Right.
I always have to remind myself, like, if I find a man attractive, I'm gonna go up and say hi to him, and I'm gonna see if we vibe well together. If not, then I won't get digmatized.
Right. With me, I always say it's hard being an entertainer because it's like I'm trying to think. Okay, I was trying to think of the like politically correct word I could use for this, but it's like in that I usually don't go up to guys when I'm in the bar because it's like, especially if I'm trying to find somebody to date, it's like I don't want to date a transvestite chaser. Like, not that's not numb. Like, because my thing is with all this, this comes off at some point. Like, I mean, granted, do I love getting drag? Of course. Do I sometimes need to be a man? Yes, absolutely. Like, I need at some point for my skin to breathe and not get like caught in a hamster wheel. My thing is, luckily, I'm at the point now where I schedule myself. That's what doing this podcast is. It's like schedule yourself. I don't get booked much. Just another reason I want to get out of Florida. I don't get booked much because the minute somebody finds out that you sing live and you don't want to lip sync, they don't want to book you. And my thing is, sorry, not my thing. That's why in this area, I used to perform in West Palm Beach, but in this area, Port St. Lucie area, I performed twice the whole time of it. No way, I'd say about 3 times. 3 times in like 5 years. So it's like, I don't get the chance. And my response is, I really don't want the chance. Bye bye, bitches.
I get it. That
Yes,
makes
as
sense.
well. Bye bye, bitches, except for my drag sister. You, of course, are always in my heart. Except there's this one time I remember she did my makeup in February. Like she wanted to like do everything because like I'm the sunglass queen. That's my thing. Literally the pair of sunglasses I wear on stage, they're not these. I got these in a brand deal. But they're a pair of Ray-Bans. They were my mom's. So it's like I take her energy with me every time I perform.
Oh, work. I love that.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. So it's like she was doing my makeup and like she's done. She's like, wow, you're really pretty. I'm like, what the fuck is that supposed to mean? Like, I'm like, are you saying when I do my makeup, I look like shit? Like, but
Yeah, no,
yes,
you're spot
yeah,
on. Like I'm not. That is probably
yeah,
the thing that I have grappled with the most is like there are some content creators that their actual selves are very different than their performer selves or their content creator persona. Uh, they're like different people, different personalities. Like it is a full on show, not in a shady way, but like
yeah,
it's separate. Then I put myself in the other bucket of like there is not a lot of difference in crossover between who I actually am versus Taylor. Like my personality traits are very similar. There are some minute differences, but like I'm
Right.
not always on. Like I do know what I signed up for when I go out.
Mhm.
Like if I go to sidetrack, if I go to hydrate, I always know that there is that chance that someone will recognize me, come up to me, want to talk to me. So like does it happen all the time? Absolutely not. But like there's always that
No.
possibility. But also like I like if I'm not out and I have nothing to do that night, I'm probably gonna be stoned watching TikToks until 2 a.m., laughing and having a great old time with myself, sending them to my friends, and they're not gonna watch them, but I'm having a great time rewatching them 4 times. Like, that is also a part of
Right.
my personality that if I'm going to go down that rabbit hole, like, there's a quirky side of Taylor, that is a great time, but also is not usually as always expected.
Right. I mean, I get first of all, I get that. Like, it's yeah, you create a brand and it's like this is my thing. Even with me not being like recognizable, it's like as I say, I am a tall fucking bitch. I am 6'3" in heels. I am between 6'6" and like I could be anywhere from 7 feet tall. I can't hide. Like
Alright.
there's yeah, there's no hiding me. Like
Mhm.
that's why I always have to date men who are kind of like secure enough to be with me because it's like if I'm kissing you, it's not like we're gonna be able to do this in private. I literally drag attention to myself.
I get it. You're not wrong.
Yes.
I definitely get that part.
Yes. Work. So, what's your relationship to drugs and alcohol?
Uh, I will have alcohol. I do have drinks. I am a creature of habit. So like I find joy in like having my routine. Like I am a morning person. I get up, I go to the gym, like I know what I'm going to eat. It's not
Mhm.
always the same thing, but like traditionally I am not a person that will drink a lot during the week. Like I would
Right.
say if you were to ask me 5 years ago, I would be drinking half glass or sorry, a half bottle or a full bottle of wine, just to make it through the day.
Right.
Um, but, like, now like, I'll drink on the weekends, if that's the journey I wanna go down. But yeah, I would say, like, I'm not a heavy drinker, as as Maya Angelou said, "Moderation and moderation," and I do that with my alcohol.
Right.
Um Obviously, you already know from what I have told you, I am
Yeah.
a big fan and connoisseur of, uh, marijuana. I am a
Right.
very big fan of that. Do I overindulge sometimes? Yes, but that is also a Taylor alone time,
Right.
thing that I just like vibing to on my own and doing my own quirky thing. Um, I would say, like, you can't not be in the adult content creation spaces and not be around other substances.
Mhm.
Uh, so I will try something. Obviously, there are hard no's, like no to meth, no to uh, those types of things. But I'll always
Right.
like, uh, if I don't want to, then I won't. Um, if I'm like feeling up to it, feeling a little spicy, like I'll give it a shot. And if I like it, I don't. But I think
Right.
for me, if I do want to go down that do want to try it, one
Yeah.
is intentions. Like even sometimes whenever I get high, like I will have a conversation in my head of like, this is what we're doing. These are our intentions. Like if I'm having a bad night, no, that's not for me because I know it's going to make it worse.
Right.
Uh, but I also wanna make sure that, like, I don't need a guide to try something the first time, but I also, like, wanna make sure that I have some kind of an ecosystem around me that I'm
Yes.
not left, uh, no pun intended, high and dry, on
Right.
my own to fend for myself. So,
Yes.
as long as I'm with friends or people that I know and trust, I'll If I'm feeling up to it, I'll give it a shot. But yeah.
See, this is where I always get to tell people, as a shocker, most people think drag queens always get fucked up before they perform. Not this one. It's like, my thing is, I loved it. I'm not like completely sober, but there's something about loving being able to perform sober. It's amazing. The reason I am sober when I perform, so I had a night in my early 20s where I was getting handed drink after drink after drink after drink, and people were buying me shots, and then like I got drunk. I didn't realize I was drunk, so I got in my car and I drove an hour home. Or I drove. Yeah, actually, you might know this. I drove from Lantana to Jensen, so that's an
Ooh.
hour. Yeah,
Mhm.
and then about 45 minutes in, I was in Stewart. I got pulled over by a cop, and luckily my dad came and saved my ass. Otherwise, I would have gotten a DUI. So that kind of like stopped me from drinking when I was performing, and it's like, I'm like good. It is also, it's something nice to be like cognizant of what's going on around you, because as I pointed out before, men don't know how to act. Not all men, but a lot of men don't know how to act when they're around people. Whether it's go-go boys, drag queens, whatever. Probably the worst time was at Parliament House one night when I was performing. I was sober at this, thank God. So like, I had somebody rip off my wig, like, and I'm like, and I'm thinking, I'm like, baby, you're lucky I'm in a good mood. Otherwise, the shoe would be coming off and it'd be going right upside your head. It's like, don't touch my hair. First of all, yeah, keep boundaries, like keep
Mhm.
space. Like, if somebody's like, don't act brand new. Like, you know that you shouldn't be like, you shouldn't be trying to finger somebody. You shouldn't be trying to eat somebody's ass because they're on stage shaking their ass in front of you. Like, come on. It's literally, it's 2024. Why are we having this conversation still?
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, I for myself when I am like, especially when I do a photo shoot, because I can't cover up a night of drinking. I've tried, and it does not. It uh, One of the things that I have carved out as a part of myself is that I am very present with my facial expressions. I am very expressive when I am doing content.
Right.
Uh, and yeah, if I decided to do like uh, a collab in the middle of market days, like that's just not going to happen. Like, will I be able to bottom? Likely, but am I going to look like how I traditionally look on my face and whatnot? No, I'm going to look like I was up until 4 a.m., went home, got an hour of sleep, and then woke up, got ready, and then came to you. And I'm very Caucasian, so I'm not blessed with great revitalizing genes as some are. So I also know that I know my body, I know my limitations, but I also don't want to be messy. Like I enjoy doing what I do. I thoroughly enjoy connecting with my scene partners,
Right.
and I don't want to be under the influence while we are doing something because you also never know when something will pop off. I we could do I could do a collab next week and it could be the best thing and pop off on Twitter and there you go. And you don't want to take the risk of missing that moment just because you thought it was really important to have a lot of shots of tequila before a shoot.
Yeah, and it's also, I mean, first of all, I get that. I'm running on So this was the thing. I was out last night. I went out. I hadn't seen my drag sister perform in a while, and like, I went out and I was up later than I usually am. So I'm also an early riser, so I get that. Like, granted, I wasn't drinking, but it's still like, even if you're sober, you get tired. So like, luckily, I will say that's the only thing where doing makeup and wearing sunglasses helps. Is like the under the eye circles disappear. Like, that's probably the only thing, but it's like, I always say my weekend's like my time to like catch up. So like, because I work Monday through Friday, so it's like Saturday and Sunday, I sleep as much as I can. Because it's like take a nap during the day. It's like do whatever you need to, do your research, take a nap. It's like, because my thing is like, I'd rather do that than like go through life having to get wired all the time to like work. it's and I mean, I will say this. I'm actually, because I am on a diet now, so like I'm on Slim Fast, which is like really affects stuff. You don't realize, like, if you stay up late, and I notice that, it's like you don't realize how much, like, when you're not eating 2-3 meals a day, when you're only eating 1 meal a day, how much that like you have to get your rest, like, because if not, you're useless.
Yeah, like
yeah.
next, like this. So this weekend I go to Fort Worth for a photo shoot. I come back on Sunday. Then Monday I fly to LA for almost 2 weeks, and like I'm trying to break up the LA trip in particular to where it's not everything everywhere all at once with working. But like if I'm doing back to back days where I am filming, like I'm very upfront with my friends, like the Grabbies. Both the Grabbies and the IML event happened on the same weekend in Chicago. And I have a lot of friends who want to go out and do things for IML, but like I can't do that. Like there are a lot of sacrifices that we all have to make in these spaces, because I know that if I go out and I drink a lot, yeah, I could probably make it work with my face, and like I know what I need to do, but
Right.
also that's a lot of sugar in my system that is not used to being there.
Right.
So yeah, like you can't do what you're used to doing whenever you're like doing it back to back to back to back. Uh, moderation, but still, like you know your body, you know what you have to go through in order to get to where you need to be or do what you need to do. So I'm just very upfront with people of like, y'all, I love you, but I'm not going to this brunch with y'all because if I go to this brunch, then I can't do what I need to do later on today.
Yeah, and it's what I tell people. I'm almost done. So like, what I tell people is when even my fans like comment on like my singing videos and stuff, they're like saying, "Wow, your voice is the best it's ever sounded." I'm thinking that's one of two reasons. One of them is I'm not performing as much. Like I'm hardly performing at all, so it's like my voice is rested. And two, you get older with age. Like you put yourself in boot camp. Like when you're not rehearsing or performing, it's like I would never take the approach that I did at 25 to how I approach singing now, because when you're in your like early 20s and all that, it's all about you push yourself, you push your voice, you push all this because you want to just
Mhm.
sound amazing for everybody. And I tell people honestly, where it's like, I'd say until probably like very recently, like when I stepped back and started working on stuff, it's like, that's why when I tell people with my album that's hopefully gonna, as I said, hopefully gonna come out this year, I'm working on it. It's like, you're gonna hear my voice at the best it's been, I would say, ever, which is like, to think I've been singing since I was 14, 15 years old, and at 30, I'm all of a sudden like learning how to use everything correctly, and it's no longer about like just testing your limits, because as singers they always want to tell you, it's like, sing higher, sing higher, sing higher,
Mhm.
sing. That's what I hate about choirs and stuff, where it's like, people say like sing higher, sing lower. It's like, my voice is gonna do what it's gonna do. It's like, stop trying to push me down here. Like, I can't
Mhm.
push down here, I can't push up here. You learn how to do stuff. And it's, well, I mean, you probably know this from content creation. You probably know, like, you look at like, if you were to look at like your first video versus a video you shot a while ago, they're not going to be the same. Like,
Mhm. I'm very grateful for that.
yeah, it's about learning yourself. All
Yes,
right.
very much that
And
part.
yes, and I got one more. God, for people who don't know, who aren't seeing this live when this up, this is being shot on the 4th of July, and as with all Florida's traditions, people are dumbasses and shoot off fireworks at any time of day. They'll shoot off fireworks tomorrow too for no reason. And I'm like, it
I
well,
hear them every
you
now and then. I have my window open. I hear them
yeah.
very far and few between. The city did like the big fireworks show last night in
Right.
downtown, but I'll hear them every little while. But I'm sure as it probably in an hour or so when it starts to get dark, I'm sure it'll be nonstop.
And with that, this is what I view as. And when people are saying like, what's there to celebrate? I'm like, more people need to say this. Like, what is there to celebrate? Like, honestly, it's like, yes, we're celebrating the independence of America. America's more divided now than we've ever been. Like, well, okay. To the political like person who worked in politics, is that a fair statement to say? Like,
You know, uh, I think the current state of affairs is something that I have really grappled with a lot as someone who has suffered major burnout from politics advocacy. It's been something that I've been struggling with for a better part of the past year. Um, I've seen the best in politics and advocacy. I've seen where the work has truly positively affected really instrumental change in at least one person's life. But I've also was on the front lines for the Don't Say Gay bill in the state of Florida, and I've truly seen the worst. I think that there is a large population, both LGBTQ and non LGBTQ, who
right.
see these headlines of what is happening and say, well, it's not happening in Chicago. It's not happening in LA. Like, I'm not in the state of Florida. I'm not in Texas. I took, so I moved in November.
Right.
And for October, I wanted to give my family a full month before I moved because I knew I didn't want to go back and forth to visit them. So I
Right.
gave them the full month. And earlier that year, my cousin called me, and she was 17 years old at the time, and she came out as transgender to me, and her uncle was very excited for her. I was very surprised. I was not moving through my spaces, assuming that that part of my family would react that way. So I was really grateful. He asked me like what kind of resources, information, like I want to show up for her. How can I do it? Um, in October, I remember my family and I were on the road, and we got a text from a family member, um, letting us know that my cousin was no longer with us because she took her life. And she left a note, and she was still 17 years old, saying that it was because of what was happening in Tallahassee was a large part of why she did what she did. Um,
Right.
and it is difficult for me to tell that story and to relive those moments, especially because it's so fresh. But I think it's important
Mm-hmm.
because what is happening is not red meat, is not like some flashy thing to get power. You are negatively and detrimentally impacting the in large part the trans and gender non-binary communities across this country. And I can't fathom what it is like to come out as transgender. I've never gone through that experience before,
Right.
but I just truly wish that both people in our community and people outside of our community who consider themselves allies and people who are fighting to pass these really horrendous things would just understand that, like, I don't pose a threat to my nephew. My nephew calls me a professional gay, and he wears rainbows, and it is not because my sister tells him to, and I tell him not to because I think whenever we wear rainbow, it's not my thing. I wear black and green and red. Those are my colors. Those are
Yeah.
my primary colors in my closet.
Right.
But I just truly wish, like, yes, to answer your question, we live in a very divisive time. Uh,
Right.
but I think the only last rant I would leave you on
Yeah.
is we didn't get marriage equality overnight. We
Right.
didn't get all of these huge victories in a span of a couple of months or a couple of days. Like,
Right.
it is important for us to still come out and be authentically ourselves, because if I didn't come out and I did not have my journey, my parents may look at the world completely different than how they look at the world now. Now that they fully understand, both through me and through my cousin, what it is like to live in the state of Florida, be
Right.
openly and authentically ourselves, and be in a relationship and just try to be happy and be ourselves. Like, we are we have been through this cycle before. History is repeating itself, even to the effect of groomers. Like, just go and watch an Anita Bryant. I mean, don't take a shot,
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
do an
Yes.
edible
Yes.
before,
Yes. Mhm.
but watch an Anita Bryant speech. Watch, like, a Phyllis Schlafly speech. These aren't new talking points that Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott are using. They're all recycled. Um,
Right.
so we just have to continue to do what we do best, survive through each other, be
Right.
ourselves unapologetically, because history has taught us
Exactly.
that when we do that, that's how we win.
Right. And in that, I'm gonna end on another last rant before I get to the last question. So it's like in this, as I always tell people, it's like, yes, we have problems in America. I completely understand it. The problems are valid here. 1000%. With that being said, as sad as it is, our focus can't be as much on America anymore. Because granted, yes, as you said, like that story is tragic. That person is no longer alive. Like, but in that, when you go into the Middle East and you've got people fucking dying for no reason. They just come out as gay, they're killed. It's almost with that. This whole thing of, and I will say this to people in LA, you have these thousands of followers, these millions of followers, and the only thing you're doing with that platform is you're taking hot pictures of yourself and you're shaking your ass while you're making rap music. I'm sorry. Like, you have this platform. I don't even have a tenth of the platform that I'm talking about with all of these people that have bigger platforms than me. I'm sitting here being like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm like just asking the questions of, we have problems in our own country. Why the fuck are we sending money to Israel to have them fight Hamas? Like, with that, it's like, as an American citizen, it's like, in that you have to ask yourself, what's like, and this is like a bigger issue with healthcare and all that stuff. When people talk about voting, and it's why, like, it's, as you know, this is a political person, it's hard to convince people of going to, like, you tell them, go out and vote, go out and do this, go out and support this candidate, all of that. And we see no change. And it's like, it's why I will say this, going back to 2016, I will fully admit, like, as sad as it was when Bernie Sanders lost to Hillary Clinton, I gave up. Because I'm like, because my view was, it's not going to change. Like, nothing has changed. And we proved that with President Biden. Like, stuff has changed, but stuff also hasn't changed. Like, this notion of, we have all this money to help other people, but we're still letting motherfuckers die in the street because they can't afford housing and they can't afford healthcare. And the fact that in 2024, we're still having this argument about private insurers, private others. Yes, oh yes, let's go to this doctor, let's do this. Like, only pay. I hate the system. I hate the system. Like, really, I am going to vote because obviously I don't want things to get worse. But it's like, I understand why people want to give up. Like, and in some ways, I'm supposed to be the drag bitch to tell you all go out and vote and like everything's going to change. I don't know. I don't. It's sad to be like, I'm thinking like a lot of people, which is, when we go in November, it's like, the minute you get somebody who can actually make some change, you knock them out. Like, it's basically Trump and Biden again. I'm like, I want to look to these people. I'm like, did you all not do any research on Marianne Williamson? Like, seriously? Come on. Like, she's talking about helping oppressed communities. I don't know.
It is difficult.
Yeah.
The topic that you're touching on
Yeah.
is hard and isn't hard. I think
Right.
in my brain I struggle with like the political activist that's in me that understand how the
Mm-hmm.
system works and how you change the system, and getting people to understand that and having them understand how this works so that they can do it. But then the human part of me that is experiencing everything is just like, fuck the system. The system is not working. The system has
Right.
never worked unless you are, well, you already know what that answer is.
Yeah.
But
Right.
it's very tough, and it is something that I have struggled with a lot. But I think the thing that keeps me motivated is what I had to experience under Ron DeSantis. I
Right.
know that, yes, is do I love Joe Biden? He's not my
No.
favorite.
Right.
Uh uh and the I hate how we have to say I'm going to vote for this person because I hate the other person, or I strongly dislike the other person. I think that that is a poor way of talking, but
Right.
or thinking about things, but I cannot fathom what the first day of a Donald Trump second term would be like, let alone 4 years, if the man even makes it to 4 years. Um, because I've seen what happens whenever a politician like Ron DeSantis, who understands how government works, utilizes every facet of state government to attack the LGBTQ plus community, or uh, marginalized communities for that part.
Right.
And we just saw with homeless people how that's now banned now countrywide, but it was a product of Ron DeSantis. So I always say, like, again, progress is going to take time. If
Right.
I will say this, that if both millennials and Gen Z, if at least 5 to 8% more voted, we would win. Then it just becomes the topic of making sure that we are voting for the correct candidates, rallying behind the right candidates. But it's also it's a numbers game. You have That's how you win an election. That is how I was always taught. Is the secret sauce to it is that you get more votes than the other person. That's how you win. Unless
Right.
you're running for president, and then you have the electoral college, so it doesn't work that way. Uh, but yeah,
Mm,
it is very tough, and it's something that I've struggled with a lot. But I know how I will vote. I will vote. Will I enthusiastically vote? No. But
no.
I will vote.
No. I mean, it's with yeah, we're not, and to the gays who are enthusiastically voting, I don't even know what to say. Like like I cuz again, I will say this. I'm getting into this. So like just short. It's like I used to run a political show. Like before this took up so much of my time, I used to do this and a political show. And like when you sit there and you have to like read off statistics, and when you see that the average person is spending, I think I think I might be wrong about this, but I'm almost positive. It's like when you see that the average person is spending like upwards of over $1,000 a month on health insurance. With that, it's like when people always point to like Cuba and Venezuela, well, people always point to Venezuela. It's like, yes, one country fucked up universal healthcare, but you have England, Canada, and Cuba where shit kind of worked out. It's like I don't know. I'm definitely gonna stop on that because we could keep going. I could definitely keep. I could keep going because it's like, and I have to say with that, as I get to the last question, I as an entertainer should not be the one who's having to tell you this, but I am the one who's having to tell you this because of the irresponsibility of the media. And it's like, with that, it sucks. Anyway, so to the last question. What's the biggest misconception about you?
90% of the time when people meet me in person, they say, "Oh, you're a lot taller than what I thought you were." So I guess the biggest misconception is my height, because that is usually one of the first things that people say, whether it is scene partners or just people that I meet, is that they're like, "Oh, you're a lot taller than what I thought you were." I'm like, "Well, all right."
See, that's so weird because it's like when people have told me their heights, I've had people who were like shorter. I thought they were taller. Like I've had people on here who tell me, "Oh yeah, I'm 5'9", and I thought they were 5'11". And I've had people who are like, "Oh yeah, I'm 6 feet tall," and I thought they were 5'6". So I mean, like, it's one of those things where okay, well, I guess I have to ask you now because I'm one of those people who thinks you're on the shorter side. So like, how tall are you actually?
6.
See, I would have pegged you for 5'7". Like that's. I mean,
Yeah.
I also get that because it's like the great example. It's actually somebody you've worked with. So when I heard Evan West come on here, he told me he was 5'7". I would have figured that he was at least 5'11". So I mean, like, all this. I mean, I get it.
Yeah, actually, that was, I'm pretty sure that was one of the first things that Evan said whenever I met Evan for the first time. He's like, "Oh, you're a little bit taller than what I thought you were." I'm like, "Well, here we are." And you can see that height difference in our picture is that I am just a little bit taller than what Evan is. But yeah, I mean, it's not like I go around like telling people what my height is. Like it's
Right.
not something that I put in my bio, but I guess from my pictures, I look a little bit shorter. But so a lot of times when you're on your back, you can't really tell how tall you are. So it is what it
Very,
is.
very fair. I will say, I get it from me too. It's like I think I photograph tall, but it's like people are always shocked when I say I'm 6'3". They're like, "Are you really?" I think a lot of it has to do with camera angles. I don't know what that is. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I've never really asked anyone, like, why they thought I was shorter than what actually, I'm gonna start asking people that to just, like, understand because I don't know if it's from my pictures, from my videos, or just, like, a general assumption, so I'm gonna report back.
right. Okay, so I have two for me. One of them is that I've been told I'm intimidating, which I mean, I guess being taller, I kind of get it. Like,
Mhm.
I always tell people, like, come up and have a conversation with me. I'm the exact opposite of you. So you said you're extroverted. I'm very much. Actually, no, I'm gonna say this. I am better one on one with somebody. Like, if there's more than three people in a conversation, I get very quiet because it's like that's. I guess it's too much for me. For one of the reasons is, and I always like, I've never told people this, but it's like, well, this makes sense. It's like I was born with Asperger's, so like I have like social anxiety type things, and like that's why I don't talk. And the greatest thing is being a drag queen. Most of the times, I don't have to start conversations with people. People come off and talk to me. Most of the times, it's good. Sometimes I end up being drunk babysitter, which I don't necessarily love, but I will do it. And then let's see. Yes. Then the other one is that I've been told I'm shady, which I I never help that one either. It's like
Sometimes it's just part of the territory.
it's part of the territory, but it's like I love when people say it. So it's like I'm almost like, so since when is having an opinion shade? I mean,
Have you met the general public?
well, this is my thing. I know you're talking about going out to LA. I have always said, and I will, because I thought I was going to live in LA at one point, but I now think LA is the garbage can of like the entirety of like the United States. Because my view is, I'm not going to be fake with somebody. If I think somebody sucks, I'm going to say you suck. Like, I may not say it like that. Well, if they're an asshole, I might say it like that. But it's like with that, it's like this thing of gassing people up who have no talent, especially if they're in like the entertainment industry. It's like, baby, you're gassing up this person over here. They're gonna get to an A&R person. They're gonna get to a director. They're gonna get to all this, and they're gonna tell them the truth. Tell them the truth now. If they're your friend, don't make them look like an ass when they go into a fucking audition. Like, it's not as I say before, trust. As I said before, literally, somebody will always need their dick sucked in the bathroom. Somebody will always need their dick sucked in the bathroom. You can do and yeah, do what you do. Like, you don't have to be. Also, the other thing is, if you find one thing that you're good at, stay in that lane. Not everyone can branch off and do other stuff like I have or other people have. Sometimes you're good at one thing, and that's fine. No matter how stupid it is, or at least how stupid it is. If your talent's being able to shove like hard-boiled eggs in your mouth and like being able to sing with hard-boiled eggs in your mouth, that may be your only talent, but somebody's going to appreciate that.
Yep.
You don't have to
everything everywhere all at once.
And also, you don't have to be famous. Like, this is what I'm going to end on. You don't have to be famous. Like, I know in this TikTok reality TV generation, everyone thinks that you have to be, like, known for everything. At least for me, I like being able to disappear at some points. I mean, granted, I love being around people. I love seeing people who support me. I love taking pictures, all that. But there's something about getting to take all this off at the end of the day and just like kind of lead this normal life. Now, with that, in terms of a normal life, would I ever want to trade my quote unquote persona or like this for normal life? God, no. I could not live as a normal person. Like, that, oh, honey, what's for dinner? Oh, I see that you made pasta. Oh, yeah. Yeah. God, I know, but it's like, as entertainers, it's like we love the mix. We don't. love, and it's like, if some people are like, I'm an entertainer and I have a 9 to 5 job and I hate it. You're supposed to hate it. It's what's driving you to be an artist.
Mm-hmm.
So like, this is my advice to people. Go under the radar, do the bare minimum possible. Overtime is for schmucks. Like, that's literally my thing. I see people who work like 50, 60 hours a week. I'm like, you're doing that for a fucking corporation that's paying you like nothing. And again, in Florida, would fire you in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
No, I treat my day job like a J job. I go in, do my shit, take my money, or clock out at the end of the day. I am gone.
Mm-hmm.
When they ask, do you want to stay? No, I want to go home. Like,
Agreed.
yes, I have a hot OnlyFans content creator named Taylor Sinn interview. Leave me the fuck alone.
Don't contact me. Don't beat me.
No, that's the one thing that makes me wish I lived in Europe, because it's like, for people who don't know, it's illegal in Europe for your employer to contact you past your workday. I love that, because
Mm-hmm.
if you try and contact me, oh, you're from work, block. I will unblock you when I go back to work.
I
But no,
agree.
leave me.
I agree.
Yes. Well, I mean, okay. I swear, last question. I know I can talk forever. So as a political like operative, like, those are long hours, right? If I'm no
They are.
correct, yeah, it's like you work like, especially if you're on like a campaign with somebody, those are like what, 12, 14
Mm-hmm.
hour days.
On a good day.
Wow. I can, because I will say this, there was a very brief time that I thought about running for actually twice, where I thought about running for Congress, and I'm like, God. It's like I could just imagine being like the half naked congressperson, like getting kicked out of Washington. Like, no.
Well, I guess I mean, I always have a mentality of like, you know what you're jumping into.
Right.
Like a campaign, you're time stamped. Like you know that your job, there is an end date to this job. But there is only one goal for everyone, and it is to win. Um,
Right.
but it kind of goes hand in hand, to be honest, with what I do now. Like I don't really have normal hours,
Right.
nor like sometimes I have like I'm working from 8 a.m. all the way until 11, like either making content or editing content or uh, um,
Right.
other things. Of course, as I'm trying to list
Yeah.
things, my mind goes blank. But like a lot of people have the assumption that I'm just that content creators just sit around, we fuck, we film, post it, and that's it. No, like there's a lot of like you're getting a really good deal for $9.99 a month or whatever the subscription is, because
Right.
it is a lot of work to like a lot of people I have learned think that we all live next to each other and we just like bop next door. Evan and I will film. I'll go next door and Josh and I'll have a photo shoot. Like, no,
Right.
this takes either coordination, it takes preparation, it takes travel. Like it takes a lot of work to deliver the product that people are seeing, especially if it's someone that is consistently doing it and taking it seriously.
Right.
So yeah, it's not always. I wish that I could do it as like fewer hours, and sometimes there are days that are like, you know what, it's just I'm just going to take a mental break. uh But yeah, it's still a lot of hours.
Well,
I
it's
just
also
enjoy doing it.
yeah, it's like even with this, I get to tell people like the thing that they think like to that. It's like people just don't show up and like if you think everybody says yes to me the first time, you would be sorely mistaken. Like there are people and like when you do all of it, it's like granted, yes, sending emails isn't hard work, but it's exhausting when you're having to send like
Mm-hmm.
15, 20 emails, DMs, all this a day. Like it's a lot of work. And my craziest thing in Detroit is, and I can't believe I would ever even. I'm gonna be tired with the schedule, people. I'm just knowing this. At some point, I feel that I can do like radio and music, so
Okay.
it'd be like. But to me, that sounds insane. Like having to get up at like 4 a.m. to go do a
Mm-hmm.
show from 6 a.m. to like 11, and then like
Mm-hmm.
from there going into the studio, and then from there going to. I'm gonna be tired.
Mm-hmm. And there are some times where you're tired.
Yeah, but it's yeah. Well, again, as we pointed out, you take care of yourself, and like
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure even in your crazy schedule, even if it's just a day, you probably take like a day at least to like breathe, relax, sleep.
I mean, I do have to remind myself to relax sometimes. But yeah, like I know that like tonight, it's a holiday.
Yeah,
The gays were at the beach in Chicago probably a majority of the day. Once it stopped raining, they will be out. Like I'm making the sacrifice of not doing that
right.
because I have to be on an airplane tomorrow and I have to like I'm not just traveling to travel, like I have to look good and like the way I want to look in front of a camera. And then like I'm not like I was just texting one of my best friends and he was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do without my partner in crime for like 3 weeks. I'm like, same. But also if you want to come to LA with me, I need a camera person. But that's a conversation for
Right,
another time. But
right.
yes, no, like
Yeah,
you make sacrifices, but like and there will always be moments, but like I won't have to hustle as hard as I am at a certain point. Like
right.
I will be able to do the grabbies and IML because I won't have to like do X number of collabs to make sure that I'm able to fit everything in and network with who I want to network and spend time with who I want to spend time with. Like I'm in a transitional phase. So like yes, I'm working harder. My time is a lot more
Mhm.
narrow, but
Right.
it is what it is.
Yes. I mean, first of all, I get it. That's why, like,
Mm-hmm.
especially like this month, what I tell people is like why I didn't make any plans for June or July was because I told people I was at. If you had told me at in January, I thought I was moving in June. So like, I made like no plans, and like, especially now, like, there was a time that I was booked a month in advance. Now I'm booked to Monday. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just how it is, and
Yep.
my life's gonna be crazy chaotic. And I told people I'm gonna have to disappear because it's like you have to disappear, especially when you. Well, I mean, you know this when you're moving thousands of miles away from where you're from.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
It
so
is.
like,
And it, I mean, same with June. Like I did a couple of collabs here and there, but like that's why I was working my no pun intended my ass off before June. It was because like I wanted to make sure I was set through July because I knew that July I was going to be filming a lot, but in June I was going to be doing like Pride gigs, like the Mister booth at Chicago Pride Fest, the parade last Sunday. I was also moving this month. Like, you just have to be strategic in what you do and how you do it, what needs to be done, what can wait, like what different avenues will you focus yourself on to where you can not just only have one lane of income, like your hands are on a little bit more pots, like I know you touched on, so I get it.
Yeah. I mean, with that, I remember my best friend, he interviewed me on here a few months ago, or in January, and he's like, so when you move to Detroit, how are you going to make everything work? I'm like, I'll figure it out. Like, I'm like, I can't answer that. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you figure everything out. And like, if sometimes you're tired, hey, it's tired. I feel like the reason I've been able to make this go so long is because I had last week and pretty much all of this week off from doing interviews. So like, I'm full of bubbly energy. Probably won't be that way Monday. But anyway, with that being said, I have to end this. So it was a pleasure getting to meet you.
It was great getting to sit down and talk to you and meet with you
Yes,
too.
yes. I love this. And with that being said, this is Gay Out the City. I'm your host, Prince Lecture Time, and I hope you've enjoyed.